Hello everybody and welcome to Castle Hot Springs Road. We are just outside of Morristown today, back on the ATVs for another ride. The plan for today is to head east, along Castle Hot Springs Road, about 10 miles to check out the ruins of the Big Reef Mill site. Big Reef is something we've actually ridden by before but never stopped to explore, and it looks like it could be pretty neat. From there, we'll do some more cruising on a mix of easy roads and more difficult mining trails to check out the ruins of the Young Mine, a place we've actually been before. We are keeping the miles a little bit shorter today because I know the blue skies would tell you otherwise, but it is actually forecast to start raining here in the next 2 to 3 hours, so we don't want to get caught in a downpour too far away from our trailer. Either way, it should be a great day for some riding and exploring. We got parked and got the ATVs unloaded and refueled. We ended up staging just north of Castle Hot Springs Road, actually at the start of the Anderson Mill Trail. If you're familiar with the area, that trail heads north a few miles to the old mill site. There are several areas to park, and at least at this time of year, there are lots of other people out here riding and camping as well. Much of this area is actually state trust land, so make sure you have a permit on you as well as in your parked vehicle. After everything was loaded up and ready, we returned a short distance to Castle Hot Springs Road and set out to the east. Aside from the scenery, the road really isn't much to write home about. It is wide, fast-moving, and very easy for almost its entire length. Expect to see a lot of traffic on the road. We saw everything from passenger cars to heavy semi-truck traffic hauling landscape rock out from the numerous quarries. There was even a section being actively graded. The miles quickly rolled by, and the terrain slowly got more impressive the further we rode. After some twists and turns along the road, we passed a few more rock quarries as we reached the 10-mile mark. We turned off the main road and quickly found ourselves in a rocky wash. The rest of the way to the Big Reef Mill would be a little rougher, and a nice change of pace from the otherwise fast-moving Castle Hot Springs Road. We picked our way northwest, over rocks and some fun sections of trail. The road left the wash and climbed past a cement foundation, which told us we were getting close. Before we knew it, we arrived at Big Reef Mill. The ruins were built into the hillside and were surprisingly much more impressive than what I had seen on Google Earth. We parked the ATVs and got out on foot to explore. Big Reef Mill was a processing plant for ore sourced from the surrounding hills. It was managed and owned by a guy by the name of D. Cantwell, who formed the Big Reef Mining Company. The mill site includes many levels, all of which held a different role in refining the raw ore. Big Reef primarily processed mica and beryllium for use in the construction and electronic industries. Early prospecting and drilling took place in the late 1950s. By the early 1960s, the mill was constructed on site for around $100,000, and it was operational by 1963 or 64. In total, the mill was fed by 21 different claims in the area. It consisted of a large crusher, multiple shaking screens, and air tables used to get the mica into a usable powder form. The facility was able to process around 30 tons every 24 hours, and the final product was sold at market for $25 to $50 per ton. The mines that fed the mill weren't the usual deep or long tunnels, but a series of pits and surface diggings. The mica they were after, which is pretty abundant in this area, was usually at or very near the surface. It is estimated that the surrounding claim contained around 6,000 to 7,000 tons of mica, which would have kept the mill in operation for 28 years. Interestingly enough, around 1967, the mill was shut down briefly as the owner, Mr. Cantwell, found himself in county jail on 3 counts of attempted murder. It is unclear what the verdict was, but the surrounding claims and mill were eventually sold off a few different times. It was last operated by Mineral Mountain Mining Company in 1972 and likely shut down sometime soon after. The mill managed to turn out a decent profit over its years of operation. Today, a decent amount of ruins are left on site. Starting at the top, the raw ore was sorted and crushed into smaller pieces. There must have been some kind of conveyor belt that transported ore to the top of the large yellow tank in the middle. From there, it was likely stored before being further processed. Continuing downhill, the ore would have come out the bottom of the tank and worked its way down a series of chutes and contraptions to the lowest cement pad, where it was then packaged and transported away for sale. Numerous rock walls, pieces of metal equipment, and the large tank remain on site. At certain spots, you can still see piles of the refined ore, which contains numerous shiny flakes of mica, which was the mineral they were primarily after. The actual mines are located deeper in the mountains, although it looks like much of those roads have deteriorated and washed away over the years. After checking out the extensive mill site, we walked a short distance downhill. We crossed an impromptu shooting range, which unfortunately has been used as a trash pile and dumping ground. At the end, we found what might be the most bullet-ridden object I have ever seen out in the desert. Some kind of GM SUV sits out here and appears to be more Swiss cheese than vehicle nowadays. Countless exploding targets and tanks sat out here in the old car. After making it back to the ATVs, we assessed the weather situation. Some pretty serious clouds had started to build up, and a line of rain could be seen on the horizon. We figured this was a good time to get moving. We still had one more thing to check out on the way back, so we wouldn't quite be calling it a day yet, but we also didn't want to get caught in a downpour. We retraced the short but rough trail back to Castle Hot Springs Road and then continued to the west. A short distance later, we branched off the main road yet again. We were now on a spur trail to the Young Mine, located about half a mile to the north. We crawled along the scenic trail as it got progressively rougher. There were some washouts, and eventually, the trail climbed some red waste rock up to the end of the road. Here, a small trailer and other foundations remain. This trailer was some kind of small-scale mobile processing plant, basically like a mini version of what we had just seen at the Big Reef. The Young Mine, also known as the Golden Slipper, was a relatively small operation. It produced quantities of gold, silver, and copper from about 1932 into the mid-40s. The trailer seems to be a bit more modern, so it could have been reworked later on. Either way, the equipment was left here on the hillside where it will remain for a long time. At this point, it began to sprinkle and we decided it was time to start heading back. We have actually visited this mine before, so for a little more footage on that, you can watch our Anderson Mill Jeep trip video, which is appearing on screen now. We followed the trail back out as it did that Arizona thing where it sprinkles with the sun out. It was actually kind of nice. After a quick flyover by some of the jets from Luke, we were soon back at Castle Hot Springs Road. Cruising down the road, we were treated to a bit more rain before it eventually let up. It didn't take long and we were soon back to where we started. We crossed the little San Domingo Wash and loaded the ATVs up on the trailer. Just after we finished, the rain picked up as we set out back home. Talk about perfect timing. And that's gonna do it for today's video. Overall, it was a great day of riding. We got to see some new things, had a nice mix of easy roads and more challenging trails, and the varying weather was a nice touch as well. Castle Hot Springs Road offers a lot of great scenery and history all along its length, so I would definitely check it out if you haven't already. Thank you so much for tagging along on today's adventure, and we'll see you on the next one.